Ever wonder what happens when someone thinks they're above the rules? Today, I'm bringing you 3 absolutely wild stories where people tried to flex their power and it backfired spectacularly. We've got an HOA board president who got exposed by her own email, a driver who turned $350 into $4,000 the hard way, and landlords who accidentally called the authorities on themselves. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for all 3 of these stories. Let's jump in, shall we? Story 1 from Malicious Compliance is titled, HOA President Wanted Heat. I manage a New York City condo with central AC that once switched to winter mode cannot go back to cooling until spring. New York City law requires heat starting October 1st, but October swings from chilly to unreasonably warm, so we usually wait for a really cold stretch before turning it on. Tenants were fine with this for years. One chilly day was better than being unreasonably hot for 10. Last year, the board president lost it over a slightly chilly day towards the middle of October. She sent an email demanding we turn on the heating system immediately and that going forward the heat must always be on by October 1st. She didn't care if the other units would be uncomfortably warm and that she is the board president and she should be comfortable in her unit. This year, we followed her orders. On October 1st, heat on. At the annual meeting, tenants were furious. They wanted to know why a system that had worked for years was suddenly broken. The president started chewing me out for getting her email from the previous year. Not wanting to deal with her nonsense, I got the green light from my boss to pull up her own email on the projector. Her exact words. Her exact demands. She went pale and for the first time had nothing to say.
That's embarrassing.
She lost her position in the election. Her replacement was very happy we called her out, and we renewed our contract for 5 more years.
Victory is mine!
We'll never understand why entitled people like that are dumb enough to put in writing when they're basically committing a crime. And it's always almost like Scooby-Doo. I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids. On to story 2, titled, Take You to Court? Okay, this was many years ago, so I apologize if some of the details are incorrect. 'Twas the year of our Lord 2006. My big sister just started driving on her own. My parents did as most parents did at the time. They bought her the biggest pile of crap car they could find. Relatively reliable, but it was a mid-80s gold Geo Metro. It was a beater, rusty, dented and dinged, very ugly, and more importantly for this story, one of the mirrors was duct taped on. One afternoon, in the fading light, she was driving to our local Pizza Hut to pick up her paycheck. On that fateful day, as the sun was going down, someone in a big black Suburban type of vehicle backed into her front driver's side pretty hard. So hard, in fact, the car was completely totaled. But luckily, my sister was fine. Both parties had insurance, they called the police to take an official report, and my parents started the hunt for a new car. Some time passes and they get a letter from the Suburban's insurance agency asking our insurance to cover the cost of the damage done to the Suburban. The Suburban driver was alleging that my sister had been speeding through the parking lot and therefore was at fault. This was news to them. They grilled my sister, who swore up and down and sideways that she was not speeding and actually that she was going much slower than normal, because the sun was setting and it was hitting the windshield in such a way that made visibility difficult. After some digging, they found in the police report that the sheriff's deputy had noted that the mirror that was duct taped on fell straight down. So not only had my sister not been speeding, she was very nearly or almost completely stopped at the time of the accident. My parents' insurance sent a letter back stating that my sister had not been at fault for this accident and they were willing to accept the total they had paid for the car several months earlier, a paltry sum of $350. The lady who hit my sister responded back that she would not be paying for anything, as she was very confident that she was not at fault, and told my parents that they would just have to take her to small claims court. My parents responded, "Bet," and they did just that. In order to get the paperwork in line for small claims court, they had to take this little crappy Geo Metro to an auto body shop and get an estimation of how much it would cost to replace the panels that this lady has totaled. Well, a car that old was difficult to find parts for, so they were unable to find anything to replace the panels in the door. So they gave her a quote for just how much it would be to repair those panels, as well as replace the tire and suspension bits she messed up backing into it, about $4,000. Just before court, they did attempt to go to mediation with her to attempt to get her just to pay the $350 they had initially bought the car for. Unfortunately, or fortunately, she was still convinced she was not at fault. Long story short, my parents were awarded the full $4,000. As it was determined the lady did not check behind her thoroughly enough before backing out of the parking spot. And that's how my parents made $3,000 on a $300 car. Talk about not quitting while you're ahead. I don't got a witty comeback for this, so I'm gonna let Peter Griffin take it.
21.
Hit me.
Peter.
Hit me.
That's 30.
Hit me.
One more story of malicious compliance for you. Story 3 is titled Landlord Maliciously Compliance Themselves. This happened a few years ago in my last apartment. My roommate and I were living in a basement place with upstairs neighbors, and the owner decided he wanted to sell. The upstairs neighbors ended up buying it and became our landlords, and they were awful at it. I could fill a whole post with the amount of stuff they tried to get away with, but we're here talking about one particular instance. But suffice to say, they had no idea that landlords had responsibilities and simply saw us tenants as a source of income that could be ever growing, hence our rent suddenly spiking and why we left. But there was one time they maliciously complianced themselves. See, they had a habit of trying to push stuff on us that was blatantly illegal. Their first contract, for example, said among other things that they had the right to enter our apartment anytime they wanted, and could go through our stuff if they wished because we were living on their property. Yeah, this ain't gonna work out too good. I pointed out that this was highly illegal, and they grew very upset saying, "We'll see about that." This clause later suddenly became the real one before we signed. One day, however, our lone fire alarm stopped working. As dutiful tenants, we reached out and said, "Hey, the fire alarm stopped working." Their response was a predictable sort of, "So what? We need to have a working fire alarm," we replied. "And it's the landlord's duty to provide working fire alarms." "No, it's not. If you want one, you get it. The law says otherwise." And here's where they maliciously compliance themselves. Possibly because they were getting tired of being corrected, they got snooty with this one. We got a very sarcastic response. "Oh, it does it? Well, we'll just see what the fire marshal has to say about that." Wait a minute. Before I keep reading, these people called the fire marshal breaking the law? Okay, moving on. And my roommate, upon receiving this message, burst out laughing. But they were serious. They thought they were going to contact the fire marshal and he was going to side with them, and then they could come down hard on us. I don't know what their expressions were when we said, "Okay, yeah, do that." However, the next morning, there was frantic knocking at our door. There's the landlord and his family looking very concerned with a bag of brand new fire alarms for each room, and if I remember correctly, 2 spares. He begs to be let in outside of the 24-hour notice and says it's an emergency. He has to put these alarms up right now. Trying not to laugh, we let them in, and they hurriedly put up one in every single room, apologizing profusely for the delay and telling us if you need anything, don't hesitate to ask. I don't know how that meeting with the fire marshal went or if they got him on something else at their office, but their attitude painted a pretty clear picture of the ultimate result. They complied maliciously, thinking they'd call our bluff. Whoops.
Gotcha. And
And there you go, 3 perfect examples of instant karma. a board president who got exposed by her own email, a driver who turned a $350 settlement into a $4,000 judgment, and landlords who called the fire marshal on themselves. The lesson here? Don't let your ego write checks your common sense can't cash. We'll see you next time. Hey, you made it to the end of my video. Thanks. Now YouTube is showing you some other funny stuff that I have for you that'll be worth your time. Help me out in the algorithm. Fall down a YouTube rabbit hole with me and I can entertain you for at least a whole day. See you later. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, tell your friends about the channel, and hit the thumbs up button.